All right, guys, let's talk trade targets in the 2022 NFL Draft for the Philadelphia Eagles. Are we going to move forward? What's up, Eagles Nation? What's going on, NFL World? How you doing, Division Rivals? This is Stephen Hyder with Gate City Sports Channel, the sports channel where the cerebral NFL fan comes for about 10 minutes of daily content. Hey, what's good, everybody? If you're new to the channel and you enjoyed today's content, if I can ask you to do me a huge solid here, guys, hit that subscribe button. I would love to add you to the community, but in order to do so, I'm going to need you to be a subscriber. Last but not least, guys, for my OG subscribers, you already know what I'm going to ask you to do, guys. Hit that thumbs up button, hit that like button. Let's communicate with the algorithm. Let's get in front of a new audience. Let's keep growing our community, guys. Hey, man, we're over 5K. We're marching our way towards 10K, guys. Thank you all so much. Hey, today's topic, draft candidates. We're talking about trade candidates. I got 5 of them for you. I got 5 trade candidates for the Eagles to go between 12 and I'd say about 8. That's the area I'm predicting here, between picks 8 through 12, who are 5 guys that Philadelphia Eagles could potentially target in the 2022 NFL Draft. So, I'm going to say right from the jump, I'm going to exclude a couple of guys, just because I don't think the Eagles would be in range to go get them without a truly blockbuster trade, which I do not have part of this video, guys. So, just real quick, I love Ahmad Sauce Gardner. I would love to add him to the Eagles defense. I'm going to be honest with you guys, I don't think he's making it past the Jets at 4. And if he doesn't get past the Jets at 4, I'd be very excited. Potentially it could happen at that point, but I want to be honest, I think he's a top 5-6 pick, guys. I don't see him making it past that point, but I would be overly, I'd be through the moon if that happened. The other guy I'm going to eliminate right from the jump, I'm just going to be honest, Aiden Hutchinson, I don't see it happening, guys. Once again, you need a blockbuster trade. You probably need to get into the top 3 picks or so to go get Aiden Hutchinson. I don't see that happening, guys. I don't think that's a real possibility. So, unfortunately, I just don't have Aiden Hutchinson a part of this video. And then last but not least, Travon Walker, defensive end from Georgia. I think he's a great fit for Philadelphia, and especially in terms of that left defensive end, future replacement for Brandon Graham type. I think he's exactly what they're looking for in terms of the ability for Jonathan Gannon. With that said, guys, he's another player that I'm not confident that the Eagles will be in range to go get him. So I excluded him for this board, although I think all 3 of those guys are certainly worth it. I just don't think the Eagles would be able to get that far up into the draft to go get those said players without really giving up too much to do it. All right, so who are my 5 players, and where do I see this happening in terms of the position, versatility, and why? Why would I choose these guys? So let's get into it. Number 1, I think the Eagles truly need a 5-tech defensive end. When I say 5-tech defensive end in Jonathan Gannon's system, let me clarify what that is and what that means. In particular, I'm talking about the left defensive end role, although both defensive end roles will play 5 or 4-eye at times. But in particular, I need a guy that has the ability to play inside as a pass rusher, as a 3-tech, from time to time, just like Brandon Graham, and is also strong enough and capable enough to play 5-tech and 4-eye, so inside and outside shoulder of the offensive tackle, right tackle in particular, to be able to do this job as a left defensive end. In addition, they must be comfortable with operating in narrow space because you will have a Sam linebacker aligned on the ball outside of you. That's a very particular skill set that has to, you have to find the fit for. And in my opinion, there's only a few guys in this draft class with that ability with first-round grades. And I'm talking purely first-round grades. There are guys deeper in the draft that can do that. But first-round grades, Aiden Hutchinson could absolutely do it. Okay? I absolutely think the young man from Georgia could absolutely do that for you, but I don't think we'll be in range for that. I think that Jermaine Johnson from Florida State, also a former Georgia transfer here, I think he could do that for you. And then last but not least, I do think that George Karlaftis has that ability as well, but obviously it would not be necessary to trade forward for George Karlaftis, if I'm being honest. So that only leaves 1 target. So target number 1, Jermaine Johnson is a true 5-tech defensive end. Might the Eagles bite to trade forward to go get Jermaine Johnson? Interesting question. I don't know if it's true, but I'm curious, would they trade forward and how far forward are we talking, right? Because I think there's different values. I don't know how far they would go for Jermaine Johnson, but I definitely think between 10 and 12, I think that could be in play. I don't know if they would go as high as like 8 for Jermaine Johnson. I think that'd be a little much. All right, scenario number 2. I still think that the Philadelphia Eagles, because of the nature of their pass rush and the fact that If you really want to look at it, you could use a true 5-tech defensive end. There's no doubt about it. Someone that can play that left defensive end role. But truly and honestly, on third downs, if we're going to be honest, more than likely your Sam on-the-ball linebacker is going to bounce in on third down and long anyways to play a stand-up joker role in your pass rush. Or even, it fixes a wide 9 or a 7 technique outside the tackle with an ability to angle to get around and get a lot of space and movement. So, who would be the guy that could play that almost kind of what I would call the right defensive end, the Josh Sweat type role, who could be another guy to add into as the third pass rusher that's basically fixed in playing behind Josh Sweat with potentially being able to use both of those guys like a Danielle Hunter type Minnesota situation. In that situation, I only have one trade candidate to go forward to go get, and it's Kavon Thibodaux from Oregon. I think he's definitely a guy that can play 5 technique or 4-eye if you need him to. I think he's definitely athletic enough to be a 7 or a wide 9, and you can stand him up as a joker. He might even be able to play a handful of snaps where he's a Sam linebacker on the ball if it was really necessary. I think he's got that kind of flexibility. I think you could be kind of creative with how you pair and move these guys, and I think you would get something in return for his athleticism there. So for me, second guy would be Kavon Thibodaux. Some other names that make sense in this role, and you would have to decide upon if Thibodaux is that much of an upgrade to make such a move. If you're patient as an organization, David Ojabo could play that role. Ojabo is absolutely capable of playing that role. The problem is, he's probably done for the entire 2022 season. You would behoove you, and it would be smart to completely let that man heal until you get to OTAs and training camp in 2023. Just let him learn the game from the sidelines, let him get used to being a part of a football team and the way the NFL works. I wouldn't mess around and expose him to injury, rushing him back from something too soon. I think you have enough depth to get by this year, and you're really looking for the future in 23. But Ojabo, kind of that same mold, but you're not going to trade for Ojabo, in my opinion. And then outside of that, guys, you got guys like Majai Sanders, I think, could play that role. I think a guy like Boye Mafe could play that role for you. There are some dudes in this draft class. Sam Williams could play kind of that 5-4-eye, 7-9 stand-up joker, even on-the-ball Sam linebacker. I think Sam Williams could play that role for you. I think those guys in particular make a ton of sense to me, but the only one you're trading forward for in the first round will be Kavon Thibodaux. Is he a big enough impact player as the second guy on my board for the Eagles to say, you know what, that guy makes this team different. It makes this pass rush straight up formidable. That's a guy we have to go get because he makes us better this year, and he leverages and makes us better going into the future, knowing we have some known commodities. So trade candidate number 2 would be Kavon Thibodaux. 10 to 12 range as well. I would say, just like Jermaine Johnson, 10 to 12 range for me. So 2 guys on my board already. My third guy, I'm going to stick to the interior defensive line. Okay, I'm going to stick to the defensive line and go interior, my bad. I think the big question here is about Jordan Davis, right? Do the Philadelphia Eagles front office look at his testing and say, okay, it wasn't on film. He did not have put this on film, to be quite honest. I think Greg Cosell said some things that I disagree with a little bit because I thought it was a little misleading because he just basically talked about him only playing 20 snaps a game but then excluded information such as the way that Georgia just absolutely manhandled everybody they played and were beating teams by 30 points. There were times where it just wasn't necessary for Devontae Wyatt and for Jordan Davis to play more than 20 snaps a game. But I think the more particular criticism that or skepticism you could hold towards Jordan Davis's film has to do with the fact that there were opportunities on third down and long, which would have been clear pass rush situations where he was removed from the field. So if you're making this assessment, then that means you're assessing he's a 3-down nose tackle, and in addition to being a 3-down nose tackle, he's got pass rush ability. And this guy could be a difference maker in your defense. Would you trade forward to go get Jordan Davis? Because to me, that is the third guy on this list that makes a ton of sense to me. If I deem him to be that type of player, and I'm not saying that we're all going to be in agreement here, but I'm just saying theoretically you're lining up your board. I think these are the questions and the players you're asking about that would be in range. Is he a 3-down defensive tackle that can play nose tackle, can play a 3 technique, can play even some 5 if I need him to? The way they were trying to use Fletcher Cox last year. Can he give me that type of ability? If he can give me that type of ability, the way that young man tested at 330-some pounds slimming down, look, it's intriguing. It's intriguing, although it's not backed up by film, guys. It's an intrigue there. Jordan Davis, he would be the third guy that I would consider in this scenario. The fourth guy I would consider in this scenario, this could be controversial. but I'm going to put him in there anyways. I know it's hard to really think about wide receivers and going up and drafting a guy because we're already talking about taking a wide receiver in the first round for 3 straight years. So now I'm adding an extra thing on top of that evaluation to say not only should we do it, but if this particular player is available, we should consider trading forward to go get him. And I get that that might be a really, really challenging starting point for some of y'all in the discussion. I understand. But you know what? Just because you've missed on wide receivers, in my opinion, that doesn't mean you stop. You got to get it right. It's too important. You got to get it right. You need to expand upon this offense. Even if you're going to still be a somewhat balanced attack, you've got to be able to drop back and throw the ball at times. And you need receivers on the outside that can win. There's only one wide receiver that I would trade forward to go get. In the first round, I should say. And going into like the top 10 area. And in my opinion, I love Garrett Wilson. And I would take Garrett Wilson at 15 if I was staying put and he was the best player available on my board. I have no ifs, ands, or doubts that Garrett Wilson is going to be a very good NFL player. I don't know that he's a game breaker, though. I just think he's solid. He's going to be a good player. I think he's solid. But the guy I'm about to propose to you, I do think could potentially be a game breaker. Jameson Williams. My fourth guy would be Jameson Williams, wide receiver, Alabama. That former Ohio State guy that, I'm sorry, but if you just watch this film, not only is he a good route runner, not only does he have speed for days, not only was he just completely destroying college football with targets over 20 yards and what he did to guys, he's also a good yak guy. He can gain yards after the catch. I just think he's a good fit for the system, guys. I really do. Jameson Williams is there. He's flirting around between picks 8 to 10 because I think you might have to get between 8 to 12, in my opinion. But in particular, 8 to 10. 8 to 12 is the full range, I would say. Jameson Williams. I would go up and I would go get Jameson Williams. I'm not going to lie. That one's not even like, I'd put on my draft board. I would probably make the move. I'm not going to lie. All right, fifth and last guy. And I'll talk about who I left off the list, and I'll tell you why I left him off the list. My fifth to last player that I would potentially trade forward for, or at least would put him on the board to bring it up in the draft room to discuss it, to say, look, guys, we need to talk about this guy. Derek Stingley Jr. Okay, I said we wouldn't be in range to go get Ahmad Sauce Garner. Some of you might be high on Tay Gowan. Some of you might be high on Zach McPherson playing on the opposite side of Darius Slay, right? They were young guys. They were not afforded a lot of opportunity to prove themselves last year because we had relatively healthy cornerbacks and they stayed in games. Here's my thing. You can make the argument that, look, Steve, Steven Nelson got a lot of safety help, man. He wasn't nearly as good as people thought, and you pointed that out several times. It's true. He wasn't. But he was consistent. You knew what you were getting from him. Yes, Jonathan Gannon did a lot that probably made his defense look really bad, and I think that's why they didn't show a ton of interest in re-signing him. But with that said, I'm not too sure that the eye discipline is there with Zach McPherson and Tay Gowan. Tay Gowan only played 1 year of real D1 competition, guys. He transferred into UCF, and then he opted out of the 2020 season, so you only have his 2019 film to work with. And he's got 1 year of backup reserve duty with the Philadelphia Eagles. I can't say that I feel confident that he's ready to step onto an NFL field and compete. That's a big unknown. Maybe he is, but it's an unknown, and I would definitely get an insurance before I trusted that. And the other player is Zach McPherson. The problem with Zach McPherson, guys, is I don't care that he's under 6 foot tall. I do think that guys that are sub 6 foot, those 5'10", those 5'11" guys, I do think they can play on the outside. There's been guys like Joe Hayden that had a ton of success. The thing is when you look at 5'10" guys, and if you guys buy my draft guide, the one I'm about to produce on the defensive side of things, you're going to learn a lot about arm length and playing outside at corner. If you are sub 6 foot, under 6 foot, guys, the success rate of NFL corners that have below 30-inch arm length is not very impressive. It's not good. Generally speaking, if you are below 30-inch arm length, you're bounced inside to play nickel. You don't see a lot of guys playing outside there. I'm not saying it's never happened. I'm saying it's a very, very, very few and far in between. So, I look at a guy like Zach McPherson, and I got to think to myself, does he have the requisite length, arm length, all that kind of stuff? I don't know his measurements off the top of my head. I still don't trust his eye discipline as a corner, to be quite honest. But those are the things that make me worry about playing him in that position. And because of those concerns, I'm going to tell you, if Derek Stingley Jr. is still floating around picks 8 through 12, if I can get to pick 8 through pick 12 to go get Derek Stingley Jr., I'm going to go do it. Because I do think that Derek Stingley Jr.'s freshman year, it showed a guy that had tremendous ability. And I know that it was not replicated in the following 2 subsequent years. I get it. He was injured. He didn't look right. He only played in like 3 games last year. So the injuries kind of hampered his production. He wasn't the same guy he was his freshman year. But guys, go back and look what he did his freshman year. When you're forcing like 17 incompletions and 15 pass breakups and taking 6 passes, picking them off 6 passes, like, guys, that's crazy production. There's clearly something there when he's fully healthy. This guy's clearly a difference maker. Look, I still have Ahmad Garner above him. I do. But I still think Derek Stingley Jr. is a really good football player, man. I'm not going to sit there and be angry if the Eagles traded forward and got a Derek Stingley Jr. I would be quite happy with that result. I think that's a quality football player. I think it's an impact player. My opinion, the 5th guy on this list is Derek Stingley Jr. My 5, real quick for you again, just to recap who I said, guys. Number 1, I said Jermaine Johnson between picks 10 through 12. Number 2, I said Kavon Thibodaux, kind of playing the opposite role in defensive end, also picks 10 through 12. And then number 3, we went with an interior defensive lineman and Jordan Davis, judging him to be a 3-down nose tackle with alignment flexibility, can play 3 technique, can play the 5 technique, and can show us that he has a rush ability. Right? We're projecting he can rush the passer because it's not on his film. So it is a projection. Then that would be my 3rd guy. My 4th guy, we talked about it. We're going wide receiver here, Jameson Williams. My 5th guy is Derek Stingley Jr. Those are my 5. But I want to know, in the comment section down below, who are your 5 guys and how high would you be willing to trade up into this draft? Give me 5 guys that you're thinking of. How high would you trade up in this draft class? All right, guys, I appreciate y'all's time and attention. Don't forget, if you want to buy the draft guide, I have the offensive one completed. I am finishing up the final touches on the defensive draft guide, but the offensive one is $2.99. It is 98 pages worth of breakdown. On top of that 98 pages, guys, is some absolutely crazy good information. Things like talking about yards per route run and how to judge wide receivers. I think about it this way, guys. You got a 2 guard or you got a small forward of 3. And you're trying to judge them in terms of like points scored. You're looking at points per game. You can sway your points per game by just taking ridiculous amounts of attempts. Well, that's kind of like what you're looking at with yards per route run with receivers, right? It's easy to say the dude had 1,000 yards receiving. Cool. What was his production per snap? What was his production in yardage per snap? Tell me that, and we can tell you the true production level of this player. That's the kind of information I give you in this draft guide, guys. All right, y'all. I appreciate y'all's time and attention. Like I said, $2.99. It's linked down below, and I'll see y'all on the next video. Peace. I'm out of here, guys.